Hello, in this video, we're going to look at graphing using intercepts. And there are two different intercepts. We'll look at the X and Y intercepts. If you want an essential question, that would be, how do you graph? And we'll say, how do I graph an equation using intercepts? And so in order to graph an equation using an intercept, you have to know what the X and Y intercept are. So the X intercept is, in this case right here, it is where the graph crosses the x-axis. And the big thing with the x-intercept is the y value is always 0. So take a minute, even pause and think about that for a little bit, but the y is always 0. So we're going to find it by setting y equal to 0. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Here's the y-intercept in this case. And so let's write that, where graph crosses the y-axis. And we're going to set x equal to 0, because that is where it goes. Does not go left or right at all. It just goes straight up. So x would be 0. This is confusing because to find the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0. And to find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0. But as we dive into these examples, you'll see, well, it also works out that to find the x-intercept, your answer is x equals a number. To find the y-intercept, your answer is y equals a number. We could also add, after you set equal to 0, let's put this in here. We say solve for x. And after you set x equal to 0, here you would solve for y. So to find the x-intercept, let's do that one first. We set y equals to 0. So 3x, I want the x-intercept. X is going to be in there, plus 2 times 0 is equal to 6. And that's just going to go away. That's going to be 0. So 3x is equal to 6, and x is equal to 2 when you divide both sides. The best way to write the x-intercept is as an ordered pair, 2, 0. To find the y-intercept, I need to move this up a little bit. We're going to set x equal to 0. And so 3 times 0 plus 2y is equal to 6. So just 2y is equal to 6 because that's gone. And when you divide by 2 on both sides, you get y equals 3, or x is 0 and y is 3 for the ordered pair. So you have an x-intercept and a y-intercept. There is what we commonly call the cover-up method, which is, if it's in this standard form here and you want to find the x-intercept, just cover up the y. And then that gives your equation, because you know it's going to go over to 0. So if you cover up y, then you get 4x is equal to 10. And x is equal to 10 over 4, which is 5 over 2. And that gives you an ordered pair of 5 over 2, 0. So there's the x-intercept right there. And notice this cover-up method is really just a shortcut. For the y-intercept, I want to cover up the x. And that gives me my equation, negative 2y is equal to 10. And you may be able to just look at that even and say, well, I can divide it by negative 2 and y equals negative 5. And that's good mental math to practice. Let's write at least that one step out. So we plug in 0 for x. I'm left with y, so I know I'm finding the y-intercept. Divide both sides by negative 2 to get 0, negative 5 for the y-intercept. And then if you haven't already, pause the video and try C. Just a reminder to try these problems on your own often. Let's find the x-intercept first. We'll go back to plugging in 0, although you can use the cover-up method. So 5, be careful because they're switched here. So y is first and x is second. So 5 times 0 minus 3x is equal to negative 15. So that 0 is out. And you're left with x is equal to 5. Let's write it up here for my x-intercept. And then the y-intercept, plug in 0 for x. Make sure you plug in 0 for x, not for y. If you're solving for the y-intercept, you should get y equals at the end. So if you don't get that, then that is a good way to check your mistake. And then so y is equal to negative 3. So let's write it as 0, negative 3. Okay, so solving for the x and y-intercept is nice because you're dealing with 0. And so if you can navigate through like what to plug in where or where to plug in 0, then the solving is usually pretty simple because 0 leads to something going away. And so this is an efficient way to get 2 points on a line. And if we have 2 points, then we have a line. So this is one strategy for graphing the line. So we're going to graph using intercepts. And so we'll do these first couple kind of slow, then we'll speed up a little bit. Be sure to pause the video often to try the problems on your own and give yourself time to think. So if we want to graph the given equation and label the intercepts, so we're going to find the x-intercept. And then we're going to find the y-intercept. And then we're going to plot both points. And then we will draw a line. And we'll label them as we go. So when we find the x-intercept, it'll already be labeled. And so that'll be good. So I want to find the x-intercept. I want to plug 0 in for y. This one's a little funky because 0 is by itself over here. So then we have to decide what we're going to do. Let's subtract 5 from both sides. And then divide by 10. So divide by 10, and you get negative 5 over 10 is equal to x, or negative 1/2 when you reduce is equal to x. So that means my x-intercept, we'll put it over here, is negative 1/2, 0. Okay, let's find our y-intercept. Use a different color. For y-intercept, we want y to be in the equation, but we want x to be 0. So that one's a little quicker because 10 times 0 is 0, and you could even use the cover-up method here and just say, well, y is equal to 5. So that makes my y-intercept 0, 5. Now be really careful with your order of points. That's a really common place for people to mess up. And then when you graph, be really careful with your order of points. That's another common place people mess up. So this is, and this is a little small. So negative 1/2, 0 is in between 0 and negative 1. So it's not like an up 1 over 2 situation. You just go to the left, negative 1/2, and then we're going to go up on 5. So here's my x-intercept. Here's my y-intercept. And then this line's kind of tricky because it's got a really pretty steep slope. But that's what your line looks like. Okay, try B, C, and D using the same method, and then check them with this video. So we're going to use the cover-up method here. Let's cover up y, and that leaves us with 3x is equal to 15. And so I divide by 3 on both sides and get x is equal to 5. So my x-intercept is 5, 0. And then let's cover up the x, and that leaves me with y is equal to 15. So my y-intercept is 15, which is off the graph, which we'll have to account for that. Okay, so be careful. I did what I warned you against, and I caught myself, and I was like, I'll finish it out and then fix it. So be careful with the order. Y is 15, x should be 0. And so this is 0, 15. You can also check like the 0 should be in a different spot each time. And so that might be a good way to check. Or the number should be in a different spot each time, which is maybe a better way because the number should go with the intercept. So x-intercept, number in the x, y-intercept, number in the y. Not that the number can't be 0, but it's not often. So now plot your points. So 15 or 5 zeros right there. Here's the x-intercept. And then 15 would be up here ways. Let's just call it right here. We'll say this is 15. And then you would connect. Oh, I missed those lines. Ideally, you would use a straight edge. I drew a bad line. Okay, we'll move this up a little bit. So here for the x-intercept, cover up y. And when you cover up y, you're just left with x equals 8. So that was quick. So the x-intercept is 8, 0. And then when you cover up x, you get negative 4y is equal to 8. So y is equal to negative 2. So the y-intercept is 0, negative 2. So your y-intercept, 0, negative 2. The x-intercept is 8. Take a moment to recognize the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. Actually think about that a little bit and think about the y-intercept crossing the y-axis. And then now we can connect these lines. If you have a straight edge, that would be ideal. That line was much better than the last one. And then there's one more of these. So pause the video and try this one. We can use the cover-up method again. When we cover up y, we get negative 0.5x is equal to 0.25, and divide by 0.5 on both sides. So let's see, I think that's 0.5. Yeah. So it'd be, you get negative 0.5, which is just 1/2. And then for the y-intercept, so let's write that down. So one thing, so I did some work to get this equation by itself. Let's go ahead and write in what we did. We divided by negative 0.5. And so my mind wasn't into where I started. I didn't realize I plugged in 0 for y, but I knew I had x equals. So if you end with x equals, that is your x-intercept. If you end with y equals, that's your y-intercept. So let's cover up or plug in 0 for x, and all this will just be gone, and you're just left with y is equal to 0.25. My negative sign went away on my x. Should be negative. So, and this graph is pretty small. And so if you have a decimal, just make sure you're in between the two integers. So what I mean by that is, let's think about the y-intercept first. So the y-intercept is 0 and then 0.25. So you need to be in between 0 and 1. It's going to be hard, especially on this graph. It's so small. It's hard to show exactly 0.25 because it's not quite halfway, but just do the best you can. And the x-intercept, same thing. This line is just going to look like these dots are almost touching each other, and that's okay. If you wanted a more accurate line, you could just pick some more points for x like we've done before. You could pick, well, let's say I want to know 5. If I plug 5 in for x, what's y? And then I could get a more accurate line. But for now, if you just have the x and y-intercept in the right spot, then you're good. Okay, when we can do this with some different situations too. If we just give you the intercepts, you should be able to graph the line. So let's turn this into points. So if negative 5 is the intercept, then it's negative 5, 0. And this would be 0, 6. Or the x-intercept is at negative 5 and the y-intercept is at 6. And then connect those. Hopefully you hit them. I kind of missed that one. And you're good. And then try B, pause the video and give it a shot. But the x-intercept would be x is 8, y is 0. The y-intercept would be x is 0 and y is 3. Or I think I said that right, y-intercept. I'm going to turn this so I can draw it maybe a little better. And there we go. Okay, and then we can also, as we normally like to do, we can put some of this in context of the real world. So take a minute, read through this, and see if you can answer this question on your own, and then watch the video. Okay, now that you've had a chance to look at it, say you borrow $1,800 from your parents. To repay your debt, you give them $150 per month. And so your debt, D in dollars, that's the amount you owe, is given by this function. And T is the time, and we're talking in months. Okay, so we want to find the intercepts. So there's D and T intercepts here. So let's plug in each one. So say your debt is 0. So let's do D equals 0. And then that means I have 0 is equal to 150 T minus 1,800. And then, man, I'm going to run out of room here. Let's move it down this way. Add 1,800 to both sides. And then divide by 150 to get T by itself. And I'm going to type that in real quick. And so T is 12. And so we got to think, well, what is that? Is that the T-intercept or D-intercept or X or Y or what? So if this were the case, you would put time on the X-axis because it is independent, and your debt would be on the Y-axis because it changes based on time. So as the months go, your debt goes down in this case. So T is 12. Let's just say this is 12. And D is 0. Okay, now let's flip it and do the other variable. Let's say, what happens if T is 0? Well, if T is 0, let's see. Then we can just do the cover-up method or plug in 0. Oops. And your amount you owe is negative $1,800. So that's down here somewhere. We'll put it right down there. And this would be your D-intercept or your Y-intercept if you want to stick with that. So let's do 0, negative 1,800. Okay, so then it says, explain the meaning of the answers you found in part B as related to the problem. So what does this mean? Well, this means when time is 0, and when you talk about this, just talk about it in context of the problem and in each coordinate. When time is 0, you have negative $1,800 that you owe. So when time is 0, you owe your parent $1,800, and that makes sense because that's the amount you borrowed. When time is 12, you owe your parent $0. So what does that mean? Well, that means after 12 months, you're going to pay off all your debt. You'll be debt-free from your parents. You will still owe them a bunch because they've raised you for however long. But in this situation, you will not owe them any other money from the $1,800. It'll take you 12 months to pay them off or for your debt to get to 0. Okay, reach out if you have any questions, and good luck with graphing equations with X and Y intercepts.